Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We all want to learn fast and learn deep, right? But without getting bogged down in a ton of information overload.
That's exactly what we aim for.
And today we're diving into something that seems really straightforward at first glance, but turns out to be surprisingly nuanced and, according to our source material, absolutely crucial for anyone in the business world. That concept is sincerity.
You found this fascinating document for us,
I did, yeah.
titled Sincerity in Business, the Key to Lasting Success in PDF form. And I think our mission today is to really understand why this document puts sincerity front and center, not as just, a nice to have or a matter of politeness,
Right.
but as a core driver, a fundamental element for any business that's looking to build something that actually lasts.
What struck me right off the bat is how the document presents this kind of, well, it almost feels like an active process. Sincerity is something you cultivate,
Oh, absolutely.
something you tend to, and it reaps rewards. It's almost like you're planting something. Whereas dishonesty is, well, I don't want to say evil, but it's definitely portrayed as this toxic thing that ultimately undermines everything you're trying to do. And the document uses some really interesting comparisons throughout.
Oh, it does. It's full of these vivid analogies. Gardens, bridges, lighthouses, you name it. And I think what it's trying to convey through that is that sincerity isn't just this one-dimensional concept, right?
It's multifaceted.
Exactly. It's got all these different facets, and it impacts a business in all sorts of ways, in ways we might not even realize at first.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. One of the first things the document establishes is this idea of sincerity as like the foundation,
Yeah.
the absolute bedrock of credibility.
That's a really strong image, isn't it? Bedrock.
It is.
It immediately gives you a sense of stability, and the document really plays on that by contrasting it with dishonesty,
Oh, yeah.
which it compares to building on sand.
Uh-huh.
So you've got sincerity, the solid foundation that can withstand anything, versus dishonesty, which is, well,
Destined to crumble.
exactly. The moment any real pressure comes along, the whole thing collapses. And I think that's a really crucial distinction because business is full of pressures, isn't it? Competition, market fluctuations.
Unexpected challenges.
Yeah, all of that. So you need that solid base to weather those storms.
And it goes on to talk about sincerity as a kind of currency, but not just any currency. A truly valuable one, the kind that's accepted everywhere and never loses its worth.
It's a powerful statement.
It is, especially in a world where things are constantly changing, Trends come and go, technologies become obsolete. But the document argues that sincerity, that genuine trustworthiness, always holds its value.
And when you think about it, what underpins so many of the interactions we have in business, what makes those transactions, those partnerships possible?
Right.
Trust, right?
Really?
And isn't that trust built on the acceptance of that currency of sincerity? When a company has a reputation for being honest, for doing what they say they'll do, their word carries weight. It has value.
Makes
The document makes this really clever comparison, likening dishonesty to counterfeit money. It might circulate for a while, fool some people.
But eventually.
Eventually it gets exposed. And when it does, it can do a lot of damage. Not just to that individual company, but potentially to the whole system.
And to make sure you're always headed in the right direction, the document presents sincerity as this reliable compass, always pointing you towards ethical practices and long-term viability.
I love that image of the compass.
It's really effective.
Because it suggests that sincerity isn't just about feeling good, or being morally upright. It's also, the document argues, the most strategic path.
Interesting.
It's the path that's going to lead to sustainable success. A faulty compass, representing dishonesty, might offer some quick wins, some shortcuts. But in the long run,
You end up lost.
exactly, it steers you away from that true north of building something that actually lasts.
And speaking of building, the document then goes on to talk about sincerity in the context of relationships. It's presented as a kind of a bridge of trust that can withstand any challenge.
Again, there's that emphasis on strength, on durability. A rickety bridge representing insincerity might get you across when things are calm. But when the storm hits, when those inevitable challenges arise, well, you don't want to be on that bridge.
Makes you think about all those business relationships that have fallen apart because of a lack of trust.
Absolutely. Sincerity is what creates that strong, dependable link with your customers, your partners, your employees, everyone.
But it's not a one-time build, is it?
Right. The document talks about it as tending a garden of trust.
I love that analogy.
Because a garden requires constant care, right? You can't just plant the seeds and walk away. You have to water them, weed them, protect them from pests. And trust is the same way.
So, what are the equivalents of watering and weeding when it comes to building trust?
I think it's about consistent communication, being transparent, genuinely listening to your stakeholders, and most importantly, reliably following through on your commitments.
You've got to walk the walk.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words. And the document makes this point very clearly. Dishonesty is like those weeds that choke out the healthy growth in that garden of trust.
So, we've talked about credibility, relationships, trust. Now, let's shift to reputation. The document uses a really striking visual here, comparing sincerity to a lighthouse.
Oh, I remember that one. A lighthouse guiding customers and partners to safe harbors.
It's such a strong image, isn't it?
It is, because a lighthouse is a symbol of dependability, of safety. It sends out this clear, trustworthy signal.
And insincerity.
Is that deceptive light, that false beacon that lures ships onto the rocks.
And I think we've all seen examples of that in the business world, haven't we? Companies that project this image of trustworthiness, but ultimately...
They don't deliver.
Exactly. And the damage to their reputation can be immense. It takes years to build trust, but it can be destroyed in an instant.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about grand gestures or big pronouncements. A lot of it comes down to those everyday interactions. How a company handles customer service, how it responds to feedback. Those are the moments where sincerity, that genuine care, really shines through.
And I like how the document also talks about sincerity as a clear mirror reflecting your true values, your actions, your communications. They should be an authentic representation of who you are as a company.
Absolutely. Dishonesty, on the other hand, is that distorted mirror. It creates this warped reality, a false image that might fool some people for a time, but
eventually the truth comes out.
it always does. And when it does, well, it can be pretty ugly.
Switching gears a bit, the document also makes some really interesting points about sincerity in the context of growth.
Oh, yeah, the seed of sustainable growth. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not about chasing quick wins or following the latest fads. It's about building something with deep roots, something that can withstand the inevitable ups and downs of the market.
And it makes this really thought-provoking comparison between dishonesty and, of all things, genetically modified crops. I remember that. It's suggesting that while dishonesty might offer some rapid artificial growth, it lacks that inherent resilience, that long-term viability.
It makes you think about all those companies that have achieved massive success through questionable means, cutting corners, exploiting loopholes.
In the end,
They often flame out. They can't sustain it because they haven't built on that solid foundation of sincerity.
the document talks about the importance of investing in ethical practices, nurturing those honest relationships throughout your entire value chain, from your suppliers to your distributors, everyone.
Right. It's about creating an ecosystem of trust.
And it compares sincerity to fertile soil, where growth and innovation can flourish, whereas dishonesty...
Leaves you with barren land. Nothing can really take root there.
So we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about credibility, relationships, reputation, growth. But what happens when things get tough, when you're facing those inevitable challenges and uncertainties?
Well, the document offers a really beautiful image for that. It presents sincerity as your guiding star of principles. That constant point of reference, even when the path ahead seems unclear.
It contrasts that with the deceptive allure of a mirage. When you're lost in the desert, a mirage seems like salvation.
It's an illusion.
It is. It offers this false promise of relief. But your core principles, the ones grounded in sincerity, those are the real constants you can always navigate by.
And I think that ties in directly with the ethical responsibilities of a business. The document emphasizes the importance of having those clear ethical guidelines in place, providing training and rewarding ethical behavior.
It's not enough to just talk the talk.
Right, exactly. You have to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And you have to create a culture where sincerity is not just a buzzword, but a lived reality.
And I really like the comparison the document makes between sincerity and clear water, allowing true intentions to be seen, versus dishonesty as murky water breeding mistrust.
It's a really evocative image
It is. It highlights the importance of transparency.
of being able to see clearly what's going on, what the motivations are.
And finally, the document talks about the ripple effect of sincerity. It's not just about your immediate transactions, it's about the impact you have on the wider world.
That's a really important point. The document suggests that sincere actions create this positive ripple that extends outwards. It generates goodwill not just for your company, but for the market as a whole.
And on the flip side,
Dishonesty is like a toxic spill. It pollutes everything it touches.
it highlights the importance of leading by example, encouraging ethical behavior among your peers within the industry. It's about contributing to a collective standard.
Absolutely. And ultimately, the document argues that sincerity is about building a lasting legacy, something that continues to benefit others long after you're gone. Dishonesty, on the other hand, leaves behind a tarnished legacy. It's like the difference between nourishing rain that helps everything grow and acid rain that destroys everything in its path.
So to bring this all together, what's the core message about sincerity in business that we've extracted from this document?
I think the document makes a very strong case for sincerity being not just an ethical choice, but a fundamental driver of long-term success. And it does this by showing how sincerity impacts all these different facets of a business. Building trust, establishing a solid reputation, fostering sustainable growth, upholding ethical standards. It's all interconnected.
And it does this really effectively by using all those vivid analogies, the garden, the bridge, the lighthouse, the seed, the compass. It really brings these abstract concepts to life.
It does. It makes them tangible, relatable.
So for you, the listener, as you're processing all of this, here's a question to ponder. Of all the ways the document illustrates sincerity, whether it's the garden of trust, the bridge of relationships, the lighthouse of reputation, or any of the others, which one resonates most deeply with you? And perhaps more importantly, how can you cultivate more of that sincerity in your own professional sphere?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about theory, it's about putting these principles into practice.
And reaping the rewards of building a business that's not just successful, but also built on a foundation of integrity.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We all want to learn fast and learn deep, right? But without getting bogged down in a ton of information overload.
That's exactly what we aim for.
And today we're diving